Viva lost wages. Well, hi everybody. Yes, Viva lost wages. It is Las Vegas, on the run from Las Vegas. I'm very excited to be here in Las Vegas for the first time in 5 years because of the pandemic, of course. And I actually didn't get here in 2019. I was planning to get here in 2019, but didn't make it. So that means it's been 5 years, and I'm super excited to be here. I'm going to be doing a lot while I'm in Las Vegas. Of course, going to G2E next week, which will be Monday to Thursday next week. So what's that? That's the, I don't know, what's that? The top to the 12th, 9th, 10th, 11th and 12th, I think, of October. But I'm here already. I've been here for a few days acclimatizing, or if you're American, acclimating, to hopefully not be so jet lagged during my time here. And I'm going to be having a series of meetings. Actually, I'm having some meetings with the very most senior executives here in Las Vegas. I'm quite excited to have such meetings, and I will be touring around Vegas as much as time allows me, checking out, a post Sheldon, now Apollo Venetian, a post Maddox, now Billings Wynn, and even a post Sabella Resorts World Las Vegas. And we've done some commentary around Resorts World Las Vegas over the years along the lines of they're not making very much money. So I'm quite interested to go check out the property. I haven't had a chance to do much other than work in my hotel room and walk around downtown a little bit since I've been here, but I will be getting out in the next few days. And of course, all next week, I'll be out a lot. And yes, I'm staying downtown. Something interesting, decided to stay with the CDC guys. CDC Gaming Reports from the US, of course, a strong strategic partner of IAG. They do the Americas, we do Asia, and they're staying at the El Cortez, the oldest continually running casino in Las Vegas. So we're staying there, which is kind of fun. Actually, room's quite nice. I'm in the room now. Room's quite nice. Quite enjoying being downtown, seeing a bit of old school Vegas rather than the usual strip stuff, which I've done a million times before. I think this is something like my, who knows, 50th trip to Vegas, maybe over the past 30 years. Started coming to Vegas in the mid-90s. So it's a second home for me. I'm also interested in checking out the northern end of the strip. Fontainebleau is going to be opening in December this year after 16 or 17 years of trying to open and going through various iterations over the years. I think that'll be really interesting. For those of you who don't know, that's been owned by a whole bunch of people, including James Packer at one stage, and it's finally going to get open some 16 years after being announced later this year. That's at the north end of the strip, just above Wynn, opposite Circus. So yes, that's Las Vegas. Another exciting thing I'll be doing is a plane trip, a light aircraft trip, just two of us. A mate of mine and I are going to be flying over to Orange County on Friday. It's Wednesday afternoon as I shoot it here, which in Asia, of course, is Thursday morning. You'll be watching this, I guess, maybe very late Thursday night or early Friday morning in Asia. So we'll be taking a little light aircraft general aviation trip over to Orange County, to LA, Orange County in South LA, of course, and back on Friday. So that's going to be fun too. I really enjoy flying at light aircraft in the US for the first time ever in the US. Okay, so let's talk about Macau. A little bit of commentary on Macau. One thing I want to talk about is this non-gaming that's going on at the moment in Macau, this push as part of the new licenses, as part of the new concessions, I should say, that these properties have to do this non-gaming work. And we've seen in the last week or so a number of announcements. GEG, Galaxy, have announced that they will be doing the shipyards. I forget the name of the shipyards, but the shipyards down in Koloan, helping to do them up. They were done up a little bit by the government, but GEG is going to take that to the next level. Wynn has come out and announced they're going to be doing some of the old districts in northern Macau, in the peninsula of Macau. Sands has come out and said that they will be cleaning up the old Yek Long fireworks factory in Old Taipa Village. So a lot of civic works throughout Macau being done by the concessionaires. I have mixed feelings about this. I'm a very strong believer in CSR and that companies should give back to the community that they are a part of. But to me, this smacks a little bit of the government abrogating its responsibility to do civic works throughout Macau, and just instead of them doing it, saying, well, you do it, you've got money. And it's a bit like asking an optometrist to do brain surgery or to cook a fancy meal. I mean, you should ask people who are experts in that area to do those things. So to ask a company that happens to be expert in running IRs to do something that's really not related to IRs at all seems quite odd to me. Just because you've got a lot of money and you've got a lot of operational capabilities doesn't mean you should be doing all these weird and wonderful projects that really are government projects. And given the huge amount of taxation the government receives from the concessionaires, just think it's a little bit odd. Anyway, let's see. It's early days of the 10 years. And I think there's a lot of confusion at the moment between the concessionaires and the government on exactly how this is going to work, how this is going to be reported as well, what expenditures count and don't count. I think it's an interesting subject, and I think it's unique to Macau. I don't think we'll see it anywhere else in Asia. No other government would dare to do it, I think. But anyway, that's a big issue for the casinos in Macau now, and it's going to affect their profitability. It really is. It's going to bring their profitability down because they're going to need to set aside. So almost like another form of taxation. It's forcing them to spend money on these areas that are not really income producing. Although Rob Goldstein has come out and said their non-gaming spend, they want it to be very income producing and they want to break even or better. I mean, I think all of them will be trying to break even or better, or at least maybe not lose too much on these areas. Let's see. But this is something to talk about. Power 50 coming up on the 3rd of November, very soon, only a few weeks away. Friday the 3rd of November. If you haven't got a ticket to the hottest night in town, please get one as quick as you can via one of the companies that is sponsoring, or just come out and buy a ticket. Tickets are Hong Kong 2,500 a pop, 25,000 for a table of 10. But many of the sponsors, people watching now may have a connection through a sponsor company and be able to get a seat that way. It's going to be at MGM Macau. We're really looking forward to it. It's going to be a great one. First time back in Macau post-pandemic with no restrictions at all. So it should be a really, really great evening. We released the promo video for that last week, I think it was, or maybe even late the week before. So watch that. It's a pretty exciting video and will help to build the mood for Power 50. Well, as per last week, we're going to go through the top 10 stories of the week this week. And starting with number 10, Tokyo. This is a Japanese story. So police have arrested 2 guys who were facilitating online gaming. A lot of people erroneously think online gaming is somehow legal in Japan, or okay, or light grey, or something like that. It is not. The government has clearly come out and said very, very emphatically that iGaming is not legal. These 2 guys were arrested for quote unquote assisting habitual gambling. This was a story we picked up from the Yomiuri Shimbun, one of the major 5 newspapers in Japan. They had facilitated payments for 42,000 customers, so pretty big operation. Some 335 million in payments, and they received about 5% of that in fees, about $14 million. So we're talking US dollars. So we're talking pretty serious stuff here. And those guys are going to, have been arrested and face some pretty serious repercussions. So online gaming in Japan, a lot of iGaming, a lot of online gaming companies think that they can do online gaming around Asia. It is pretty much black and illegal just about everywhere. So that is a bit of a problem with iGaming, throughout Asia. it's not nearly as legal as what a lot of European companies would like it to be. Number 9, GEG targeting early 26 rather than 27 for the opening of Phase 4. This is interesting because they delayed Phase 3, of course, through COVID, but now they are speeding up Phase 4 now that Macau has got very busy again and that their business is back. This is according to Jefferies, financial services firm, that put out a note saying this after visiting some Galaxy executives on a road show. They said the number of rooms in Phase 4 has been reduced substantially, actually, from 2,500 to 1,600, a 900 reduction. And why? To make them bigger, nicer rooms to target the premium mass segment, which of course is the segment that everybody's going after now in Macau. So this will bring Galaxy's total down from 7,500 to 6,600 rooms in total once everything is finished, which is not as much as I thought it was going to be. It's actually quite a bit less than Sands' 13,000, but a lot more than anybody else. So that's interesting. Number 8, so Osaka finally has now, the prefecture and the city of Osaka has signed the implementation agreement for the Osaka IR Corporation, of course a joint venture between MGM Resorts International and Oryx Corporation, a local company in Japan, and they will be developing, of course, their integrated resort on Yumeshima Island, and as part of this new implementation agreement, the price tag has gone up. They will be now investing 1.27 trillion Japanese yen, quite a bit more than before. I think it was around 1 or a little bit over 1, maybe 1.1 trillion. But luckily for MGM, the exchange rate has moved in their favour. It used to be about 110 Japanese yen to the US dollar. It's now more like 150. Big drop in the value of the Japanese yen. So it's still only coming out at US 8.6 billion. At one stage we were talking 10, 11, 12, 13 billion. We were numbers that were being kicked around. That's an enormous amount of money, 8.6 billion, but shared 50-50 with Oryx and 50-50 with debt through Japanese banks, which is they will be able to borrow 50%. So that brings MGM's commitment down to a quarter of that, so 2.15 billion over several years. Obviously they'll be putting that money in through the construction, so maybe we're talking $500 million a year for 4 years or something like that. Still a large amount of money to come out of their own cash reserves, but a little bit more manageable than numbers like 8, 9, 10 billion. There'll be 2,500 hotel rooms over 3 hotels, and I think it's 730,000 square feet of my space, if I'm not mistaken. A very big project, and could end up being effectively or even literally a monopoly in Japan, which would be great for MGM. There were a lot of concerns over whether MGM would be able to make money out of that, but if they're a monopoly, I think they will. Number 7, Star Entertainment in Australia. Interesting, they're talking about an asset light strategy now, which is very popular throughout the IR industry, throughout the world. MGM has been doing it. A lot of IR holders that have the bricks and mortar have been selling that bricks and mortar and then leasing them back and deciding to just run the company rather than owning the property. And so there's talk of Star selling the Treasury property in Brisbane for maybe around a little over 200 million Australian. Now, interestingly, Star just recently raised 1.2 billion Australian through debt and equity. We reported on that in IAG, and they were saying this will allow us to keep our premium assets. But here we are just a week or 2 or 3 later, and they're talking about selling to get some more cash. So that is quite interesting. Of course, the Australian casinos have been through all sorts of trouble and problems in the last few years, and their profitability is not as good as it was before. Just bear with me while I have a bit of water. Number 6, so Victoria, the Australian state of Victoria has now introduced changes to the gaming legislation, which give much more control to the government. This includes mandatory pre-commitment So players have to say what the most they're prepared to lose is before they walk into the casino. Enforcing carded play requirements from December 2023 for slots and from December 2025 for table games. So players are going to have to walk into the casino, say what they're prepared to lose, and must play with a card as an identified player. So all of you in the industry are going to know that a lot of players don't want to do that. They don't want to play as identified players. They like their anonymity. They also don't really want to say how much they're prepared to lose. And there's also restrictions on hours as well now. So after a certain number of hours per week, you're not allowed, I think it's 36, you're not allowed to play anymore. So now playing in Melbourne, it's just not going to be much fun, basically. And our industry is all about fun and having fun and enjoying yourself. We've now got poker machines, which is slot machines for those non-Australians. Australians call them pokies or poker machines. They're now going to be limited in the casino to $100 maximum in credit, which is not very much at all. They're going to slow down the spin rates, which is going to slow down the fun. So yeah, really difficult situation. Now all of this is in response to the Finkelstein Royal Commission. I'm not going to rehash all that stuff. But I mean, there's been a range of recommendations from Finkelstein. They're going to close down all slot facilities between 4 and 10 a.m. other than in the casino. Well, that's good for the casino, I suppose. And also they've made provision for the government to handle the Crown Melbourne casino property should Crown Melbourne not get its license. One of the reasons it didn't ultimately, it did lose its license, but didn't ultimately get kicked out. It was allowed to continue to run the casino with a monitor, was that the government didn't know what to do. There was no provision for the government to handle a situation like that. Well, now there is. Now they have brought in a provision for that. So Crown, I'm sure there's an element of concern with Crown about whether they will get to keep their license or not. But on the upside, they have done a lot of remediation. There's no doubt about that. We've got a completely new board, new employees, new approach. We don't have time to go into that today, but good luck to Crown on getting their license back, I guess you would say. Number 5, PH Resorts in Cebu in the Philippines. I guess we're at the point of now calling this a troubled property. Dennis Ui's Udena Holdings, they ran out of money. So there's one IR already in Cebu. Cebu's the second biggest city in the Philippines. There's one IR there already, New Star, which is Robinson's owned. I've stayed there a few times. A few people we know are there. Alan Teo is the COO. Trevor Hammond is running gaming there. Look, that's a new and developing property, and they're still under construction. They're open, but they're still constructing. But the second property, PH Resorts, is really troubled. And I think whenever I go to the Philippines, people tell me that the boss there, Dennis Uy, was well connected to the previous president, Duterte. But now that we have a new president in the Philippines, BBM, perhaps his power base is not as strong, and he is struggling a little bit. They have signed, the story this week is that they have signed a non-binding MOU with a local property investment company called Apple One to say that Apple One will kick in some money and therefore get some equity or maybe get a certain portion of the assets when it's developed. But it's non-binding. It's unclear what the investment is. Look, this smacks to me of PH coming out and announcing something too early and just trying to get the market up when details aren't finalised. This is exactly what happened with Solaire, when Solaire said that they were going to bail out PH and then ultimately didn't after their due diligence process. So I think, wait and see. But we still certainly have some problems down there with PH Resorts. We wish them well. We hope that they do get to open their second integrated resort in Cebu. But I think that we're a long, long way from seeing that day. Still in the Philippines, number 4, Bloomberry, Solaire, still the number 1 integrated resort in the Philippines in my book. Akata Manila is snapping at their heels, but I think Solaire still clearly is number 1 and was voted as such by the judges in the IAG Academy IR Awards as the best integrated resort in the Asia Pacific region outside of Macau or Singapore. So, the judges also agreed that Solaire was number one. So Bloomberry, the company that owns Solaire, is going to be raising US 99 million through a share placing. This is going to dilute Enrique Rizon's shareholding by about 3%, from roughly 65.5% to roughly 62.3% of the company. He still firmly remains the boss, of course, but he's just raising some cash because, well, we don't really know why. They didn't say what he's going to do with the cash, but presumably they've got Solaire North opening in Q. Well, they're still saying Q1. I think it'll be late Q1. Could be 31st of March, but Q1 next year. They'll be opening Solaire North in Quezon City, which apparently is really beautiful. We'll have more information on that when we get closer to it. And then they'll be opening, well, what we're calling Solaire South in Cavite, a third integrated resort in Metro Manila. So they need some cash for those things, I suppose. Number three, still in the Philippines. The Philippines tops 4 million visitors for the year, for the first 3 quarters of the year, which is way above expectation. Excuse me again. It was just over 4 million, I think 4,005,000. So if you divide that by 3 and multiply by 4, you of course get 5.33 million. They were targeting 4.8 million, so they're going to smash through that. And the Philippines getting lots and lots of international visitation. That's great for the IR industry and the tourism industry in general for the Philippines. And I can say I've been spending a lot of time in the Philippines in the last 12 months. And it is not the Philippines that a lot of you know. A lot of people sort of say, oh, the Philippines, isn't it dangerous there? Or isn't it dirty there? Or, they say things like this, and the traffic's so bad. You know what? It's improved out of sight. It really has. And if you stay in the right areas and you hang around Entertainment City and you use the Skyway, or you go up to Clark, where there's a magnificent airport and great property there in Han, Casino Resort, and probably some other properties coming up there soon. The Philippines is much improved, and if you haven't been there for a while, it's well worth going there and getting some local knowledge before you go and exactly how to arrange your trip, because I think it's one of those destinations where you can have a good trip and you can have a bad trip depending on how you organise the trip. And if you know what you need to know, you can have a great time in the Philippines, and there are some wonderful properties there. Number 2, so Macau GGR for last month, which was September, was only 14.9 billion MOP, which is a little under, I think it's about 1.88 billion US dollars. This is the first time it's gone down in 2023 by any significant amount, but a few things to note. We had a T10 typhoon, which is the highest category of typhoon, that totally wiped us out for, let's say, 2 days. The typhoon was really only 1 day, but there were preparations before and recovery after. So probably we lost effectively 2 days. The chief executive of Macau actually required the casinos to close for, I think maybe it was around 18 hours or so, which that's another matter. I don't think that makes sense. I think people are perfectly safe in casinos. They're very strong buildings, and to close the gaming down and to kick them out into the typhoon may not make sense. There are arguments both ways on that, and actually I'll probably write a piece about that eventually when I get time. But we lost, let's say, a couple of days there. Remember, it was only a 30-day month, not a 31-day month. So if you take that into account, you take the 14.9 billion, divide by, say, 28, multiply by 31 to compare it to August, it would be 16.5 billion compared to August's 17.2 billion. Divide these numbers by 8 to get US dollars. Not much difference, pretty much the same. So actually September wasn't too bad, and historically September's a bad month because you've got the October Golden Week in the first week of October, which is normally people wait to travel then. So September's historically a bad month. So I actually don't think September was very bad at all, and we're expecting a bumper October, probably the record number post-COVID in October. So Macau is going very well, and remember, most of this is not VIP, and what VIP there is direct with the casinos. So the EBITDA margins are much higher, the costs are lower because the casinos learnt how to save money during COVID. So actually the EBITDA profitability is right back where it was in 2019, if not higher, and I expect it to go even higher than 2019 levels as we start to cruise through into 2024 and 2025. I think is going to be mind-blowing. I think it's going to be out of this world in terms of profitability for the entire industry. And number one, well, in the vein of what I was just speaking, Macau recorded a post-pandemic high of 158,000, actually I think it was close to 159,000 visitors on Saturday, just gone past, in the October Golden Week, which is traditionally the second busiest week of the year in Macau. The average number of visitors in 2019, if you take the 39 million visitors who came in 2019 and divide it by 365, you get 108,000 average. Well, look, our average this year is up around 80,000 now, so it's pretty much back to where it was. And then Golden Week Saturday, 159,000. Call it 160, double that 80,000, double an average day so far this year, and it's been ramping up as well. So we're pretty much up now to, even in an ordinary day and an ordinary week, to an average of close to 100,000 visitors a day, almost back to 2019 levels, and a bumper Golden Week with the biggest day for the year so far, 159,000, which is fantastic. So Macau clearly back. Well, that's it for me for this week. A little bit of a longer one. Next week's going to be really interesting. I'm not sure where I'm going to be shooting it from. Maybe the floor of G2E. I actually want to get over and check out the Sphere as well. That's very interesting. Somebody told me that parking at the Sphere is $100 to park there. Wow. I have noticed things in Vegas are very expensive compared to what I'm used to. Of course, that's happening in the whole world. But yeah, in Vegas particularly, prices are sky high because of the demand. The demand is just there, and the lack of supply and the lack of staff, and we won't get into that. We don't have time for that. But anyway, so next week still in Vegas, and then I'll be back to Macau via LAX, Manila, Hong Kong, a few days in Hong Kong, and I should be back to Macau around October 16, I think it is. And then, of course, it'll be the run through to November 3 for Power 50. Don't forget Macau Gaming Show, November 14 and 15. That's going to be a live show this year, so it's going to be better than previous years. I'm expecting a bumper Macau Gaming Show in 2024. I think this year will be a recovery show, and then next year will be the big show for Macau Gaming Show. And then, of course, MAD in Manila on December 1, our Christmas party, and Macau on December 15, our Christmas party. And there you have it, 2023 is over, and it will be Christmas. So that's the run to the end of the year. But the run for me over the next week is lots of meetings, G2E, and getting back to you next week on my thoughts on Las Vegas. I'll spend the next week going around checking out Las Vegas and give you some commentary on that next week. So that's it for me. Signing off. Bye for now. Have a great weekend. See ya.